Okay, so this is pretty easy. This is my little trick. Just take some of the beads and put them on a skewer. You can see I've used these before. So you're just gonna thread them on there like that. And then what you'll do is set them on the bowl so that they've got some space in between them. You don't want them touching because then the paint can't get in between the beads and it won't cover them very well. But you can put a couple of rows of these across if you want, like that. Okay, and so once you've got it ready, you just shake up your paint. This time I'm going to use just a regular white matte paint. I guess this is actually French cream that we have. And you just spray them. Make sure you cover them really well. And you just turn them as you spray them, so you make sure you cover them, let them dry, and then come back and do another coat. Okay, and so for this one, I'm using a metallic gold. Again, just something that we had. And these are just takeout containers. I've used, as you can see, I've used them before. But you just spray away. Make sure you turn them to get both sides. And sometimes I'll turn them a little bit as they're drying just so you don't get puddles. Okay, the second way you can color the beads is actually my preferred way to do it, is you can dye the beads. So first you want to take your unfinished beads and you're going to thread them onto your string. The best way to do it is, like I showed you there, is to kind of take a piece of tape and wrap it around the end of your twine so it'll feed through the bead easier. So then you're going to take your beads and just add them to your string until you get them all kind of on there and get them the length that you want. I do about 36 of them. So you want to be able to kind of fit them into whatever bowl. I like to put them in a bowl just because they're kind of contained and you can dump them pretty easily. Rit dye is awesome. Make sure you shake it up really good before you get started. And for some of these, I'm using cherry red. So use hot water and just, I dumped maybe an ounce or two in there. I just sort of dumped it in and kind of waited to see what the color was. So you can see I wasn't real heavy-handed with it, but I think you could probably add more. Maybe they would dye a little bit faster. I just took a straw and stirred it up a little bit. And I did wear gloves with this just because I was afraid of the dye getting on my hands or my clothes, and I wore old clothes, so I didn't want to get it on everything. So if you have the beads on a string, it's a little easier to manage and you can kind of just drop them in there, and it's easier when you want to flip them over. So just drop them in, kind of dunk them around, make sure all of them are covered. And I laid them in there about every 5 minutes. I would flip them and I let them soak for about 30 minutes. And like I said, about every 5 minutes, I would just flip them. And because they were on a string, it was real easy to kind of flip them, the whole thing over. As you can see, they got darker and darker. And after 30 minutes or so, you could do it longer. Just rinse them off with cold water, and not a whole lot of dye is going to come off of them, but you do want to rinse them off because they'll bleed on whatever you're going to dry them on if you don't. So just wash them off with a little bit of water there. Just run it until there's no more color coming off. It doesn't take very long at all. And just keep running the water over them till it's super clear. And I used cold water to run through that. I don't think you want to do hot. It might take some of the color off. As you can see, I did it with the green as well. And then just dump that straight down the sink. And even though the beads look super dark when they come out, I promise you they dry much lighter. As you'll see in a minute, the pearl gray beads that I did not like the color at all. You can see them down at the bottom, they look brown. I did not like that color at all when I pulled them out of the water. There you can see the pearl gray. I was not pleased. It's a little distorted because it's on a green towel, but I was like, yeah, that's a fail. But when they dried, look how pretty they are. They actually turned out to be my favorite. So there's my little helper there. He was helping out. Love the dark green, love the red for the holidays. The gray is great for every day. And then you're going to want to use the little tape trick when you're going ahead and make the tassels. So again, you could restring these onto a new string if you wanted, or you can use the colored string. I went ahead and used what was already on there. I covered up my ends and made them a little sturdier so they would feed through the beads easier. And that's just regular tape. And feed them through the beads. And so those gold ones are the ones that I spray painted earlier. So the red and the green are the dyed ones, but the gold ones are some that we spray painted earlier in the video. So, and I just did a little bit of a pattern there. These are for my holiday beads, but you could do these for Easter, you could do them for Halloween. If you saw my Halloween ones, I added like a little silver charm to the end. You could add whatever you want. Okay, so now we're gonna make the tassel. I do about 8 inches. As you can see on the ruler, I take about 8 inches of whatever you wanna make your tassel out of. This is just kind of a thick baker's twine that you can find in the floral department of like any craft store. And so measure out about 8 inches and then make your strips. I do about 13 of them. You can make them loops and then just cut the ends if that's faster for you, or you can just measure them out and cut 13 of them, or however many you want. If you do more of them, then you're just going to have a thicker tassel. Do less of them and you'll have a thinner tassel. It's just personal preference. I go with 13. So you take your 13 and you stack them together. Then you fold them over. Where you have that loop, you're going to put one more strand through from the end of your beads. So because you're going to tie this on to the very end of your beads. So this first one, it doesn't really matter so much if it's tight. So you're going to, this is a little bit awkward, but you're just going to tie a knot with that one string and try to get it, tie the knot as tightly as you can around the baker's twine, if that makes sense. So just tug it tight and then knot it again. The important thing is just to tug it tight because you don't want your tassel to come off or the little pieces to kind of come apart. You just really want your tassel to stay together. So like I said, tug it tight. Don't worry about trimming the ends yet because you may have to go back and fix it later. So now take another piece and you're going to wind it around that little stack of 13 strands that you folded over. So wind it around a couple of times. If you like a little thicker wrap, then wind it a few more times. I wrap it around like maybe 3 times. And then you're going to tie it in a knot to hold it secure. I guess if you wanted to be really, really secure, you could put a little drop of hot glue too, but I think just tying a knot is fine. So tug that tight, and then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. And you can start trimming up all the extra pieces. So you can trim off all the little ends. And you can trim off the ends to your tassels now, but I typically will wait until I get both ends done together so I can trim the ends at the same time so I can make sure that the ends are the same size. Okay, so now when you're doing the second end of your tassels on here, you want to make sure you pull the beads super tight before you start putting that tassel on there. So just make sure it's really tight, all the beads are together, because you don't want too much space between the beads when you're hanging them. Once you get that second tassel on there, kind of hold your your ends together and decide how long you want your tassels to be. And then just kind of give them a little haircut. And you're going to trim off the ends and just snip away until you're happy with the length that they are. And kind of make them as even as you can. And that's pretty much all you need to do for those. Ta-da! And those are my holiday beads. Let me move that stuff out of the way. There you go. Holiday farmhouse beads dyed in any color you want. Thanks for watching.